Have you had any instances where those sort of containers or virtualized environments behave differently from real ones, or don't allow you to do things you could do on real environments?
My answer to that is something. It's kind of to ignore your question, because sometimes you don't care if a containerized environment works differently from a non-containerized environment, because that's what it is in production.
Yeah,
does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. But assuming that you're testing on something like Docker just for convenience, and production won't be on that environment.
If I was testing on Docker for convenience, I think I'd have to be a little bit more cautious. I'd want to set it up with Ansible, let's say, rather than go straight into Docker. If my production was on Docker, I'm on Docker. I think we had an instance with an in-house Black Ops where some of our servers weren't working the same as some of our other servers. Yep. And I think that came down to a question about Docker, and I've definitely had problems where things I would have wanted to do on a server I couldn't do because I was having to push in through Docker. The final thing is that right now at this moment I've got a DigitalOcean instance with Docker running on it, and another DigitalOcean instance with Docker running on it. And I followed all the install instructions, because I couldn't do it with Ansible on my first DigitalOcean instance. On the second one, it booted up with Docker already installed. The servers are identical. And the first one runs at 70% CPU and goes up to 95% CPU the moment you turn Rancher on. And the second one runs at 1% CPU and goes up to 5% CPU when you turn Rancher on. So I think that the Docker install can be a little sensitive. That's what I was. Docker itself, because it's a virtualizing environment, I think if you mess up and you've got a bunch of memory leaks in there, or you've got some things that thrash, it'll really thrash. And you might not actually notice from the container, apart from the container's a bit rubbish. You have to look at the outside machine and go, that's going to be hot. I wouldn't want to touch that. So yeah, I've got these two things. They should be identical. They're identical hardware, identical setup. One came with Docker, the other one I installed Docker on personally by typing rubbish in, and I must have typed a bit of rubbish in wrong. So yes, I'm a bit careful of Docker. I also understand that there is people talk about why Docker's rubbish. I think that there's a website called anythingbutdocker.com, and there are leaks around the place where you think things that should be isolated aren't as isolated as they might be. So yes, there are reasons not to.
But I think there's also reasons why. Yeah. When you start doing this, you have to be aware of the difference between your environments, and you need to get monitoring in place to help you understand what is happening on each of these things. Because you're not going to hear the fan kicking in. You're not going to see it. And you need the ability to spawn up new ones when something starts going menacing. So monitoring becomes even more important than it ever has.
That is definitely something that's turning up again in the test lab for us, is that we've got to start having a monitoring solution. It was different when it was one box and it was hot.
Because that's proper DevOps then. You have to do monitoring.